Hey guys, and welcome to the Band Rants channel, your home for NFL projections, predictions, and of course, your periodic rant. And in this video, we're going to be going over my Week 9 analysis and sort of where I went wrong, where I went right, and how I did overall. Little improvement this week, but of course, a couple of upsets can topple anyone's predictions any week, any time, of any point in the year. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the Steelers and Bears game last night, as you can probably see by the meme. And before I get into all that, I'm going to give a little analysis of the wild card as it stands right now in terms of the AFC and NFC. But before I get into all of that, if you're new to the channel, please make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below if you guys want to see me make a video about something else NFL related. And we'll go ahead and we'll start. Okay, so before I get into my Week 9 analytics and the wild card, I'm going to make two quick little mini rants and then get into it. I made the title of this video what I made it on purpose, to get the attention of Cowboys fans. I don't dislike the Cowboys. I've been tough on Dak Prescott because when you're America's team and you're at the front line, you're expected to perform as such. And leading up to this year, I don't think he met that. So I've been tough on him. I have not said that he's the worst thing in the world, because he's not. But this year, he's playing much better. And I'm willing to give him credit because he's earned it. That's all I've got to say about that. Nothing against Dallas. Want to make that clear. But I'm sure I'll still see a few comments in the future from Cowboys fans who think I'm anti-Dallas. But whatever. Bears and Steelers, this game last night was honestly ruined by officiating. And I hate leaning into, oh, the refs helped them or they got all the calls. Because I don't think that's actually analytics or logic or anything. I don't think it actually really equals anything. But last night, when the announcers are saying that the officiating is bad and they're questioning calls that really shouldn't have been made, you know it's bad. I mean, Justin Fields gets laid out 3 times, no flags, yet Cassius Marsh walks to a sideline, doesn't do anything, and he gets penalized on a 4th down play for taunting that he didn't do. And for Steelers fans that want to make excuses for these terrible calls in the comments, just save it. Please just save it. I'll delete it. I don't want to hear it. Because I got nothing against the Steelers. I'm not a Bears fan by any means. I don't reveal my favorite team on here because I think that would just make me biased. But this was ridiculous last night. The Steelers are a good enough team where they didn't need ref help, and they got it every step of the way because the NFL wouldn't let them fall to 4-4, and they wanted to keep them in the thick of the race. It's ridiculous. And when you have 145 penalty yards against another team that shouldn't have been called, at least half of it shouldn't have been called, give me a break. It was ridiculous. Now, anyway, enough about that. I picked Dallas over Denver. Certainly didn't expect it to flip. But this could be the game that Dallas needed. This could be their upset loss. Every team has it. Now, the Steelers, I could have seen them winning this game. I did have the Bears winning it, but I could have seen the Steelers winning it, just not the way they did. Titans over the Rams, Browns over the Bengals. That was a 50-50 chance, in my opinion. I mean, you could argue that the Bengals really needed this wake-up call loss. You could argue that the Rams went in big-headed and got completely upset by the Titans, and that they underestimated them because Derrick Henry's out, which, nothing against Adrian Peterson. I'm a huge fan of his. But I underestimated Tennessee. I did, however, never would have guessed that the Jaguars or Giants, especially Jacksonville, would have won those games. I mean, that was crazy. That's probably the upset of the year. But New England over Carolina, Atlanta over New Orleans. I think I picked this from the beginning. I don't know if I flipped it, but I think I picked it from the beginning. Atlanta over New Orleans in New Orleans. And I think I have the Saints winning in Atlanta. Chiefs over Packers, Chargers, the rest of them I got correct. But this isn't I'm right, I'm wrong. I just kind of wanted to cover a little bit of it because the rest of it, a lot of these were obvious calls, like the Colts over the Jets was pretty obvious. You could even argue the Chargers over Philly was obvious, but it shouldn't have been this close. Makes me wonder if the Eagles are being underestimated or if the Chargers are being overestimated. I think it's the former. But anyway, this is the Week 10 layout. A lot of potential for upsets. You could argue that maybe Seattle upsets Green Bay if Rodgers doesn't play. You could argue that maybe the Chiefs could actually upset the Raiders and continue to, stick it to the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders are the only team, in my opinion, that has played Patrick Mahomes tough in the division. But that's going to be a really fun Sunday night game to watch. Probably the best one all year, with the exception of the Ravens and Chiefs. Saints and Titans, you could see the Saints potentially pulling upset here. I'm not even going to try to say Lions over Pittsburgh, especially with how bad the Lions have been. I won't even try it. It would be absolutely hilarious for the Lions to beat any team at this point when they're 0-8, but it's not going to happen this week. But enough about that. We're going to talk about the wild card and sort of where we are with it. The Raiders. I've been very, very vocal about how the Raiders are very underestimated, how I think that they don't get enough credit. And this year, they've proven that they deserve more credit than they've gotten. Yeah, they had a couple of losses that probably shouldn't have been, but that you could say any team has that. You could say that New England has that. You could say Buffalo has that. You could say the Bengals have that. The Browns, any team can have that. But the Raiders are a team that's in the wild card race for a reason. They've got some pretty critical tiebreakers. They've got a tiebreaker over the Ravens, over Pittsburgh, and Denver as of right now. So they are in a pretty good position, and that's why they're in the neck of the race. I still think they'll be there come December, middle of December. I still think they're going to be very much in the hunt and could possibly be playing in January in the wild card race. Pittsburgh's defense is excellent. That's why they've been able to really handle teams like Seattle with no Russell Wilson. They've been able to handle Denver. They've been able to handle the Browns. If we look back to week 8 when they took on the Browns, I mean, they didn't win by very much, but their defense did an excellent job. But the problem with the Steelers, in my opinion, is that their offense is very overrated. I think they get way too much credit. But I think their schedule coming up is extremely difficult. Not the Lions, forget that game. But from week 11 to the 18, that's going to be really, really tough. I mean, they've got, with the exception of Minnesota as it stands right now, every one of their opponents has a winning record. And you can argue and say, oh, the Steelers swept the Ravens and Bengals last year, and they did really good in the division. They didn't sweep the Bengals, but they were 4-2 in the division last year. But, that is true. But we got to remember that the Bengals are playing better, and that the Ravens offense is playing much better, and they probably aren't going to have the benefit of having no Lamar Jackson in one of those games. I think he'll be playing, especially in week 18, where he could be looking for a seeding spot or the division at this point. So don't underestimate the Ravens or the Bengals down the stretch. And the Steelers in December, we kind of saw that last year, and that was really bad. So don't be surprised, especially with about 6 other teams chasing spots. Don't be surprised if the Steelers are on the outside looking in at this point in the playoffs. But now we can look at the Patriots. The Patriots are a team that I've said from day one are going to improve. And I'm very happy that I've said it. And a lot of people don't want the Patriots to improve, mainly because Goatman great and he's no longer there. But Mac Jones, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, and I'm talking strictly QBR. It's not biased by any means. In terms of QBR and what they did just on the field in that game, Mac Jones outplayed Goatman. I mean, Mac Jones scored a passing touchdown and had a better QBR and I believe better passer rating than Goatman. And that's saying something because, I mean, how many quarterbacks can you look back to in their very first game as a rookie in Foxborough outplay Goatman? I would struggle to maybe find even anyone that can meet that criteria. It's very difficult to have, but Mac Jones has it. Even though they didn't win the game, that's fine. It was very, very close. But the Patriots, if you look back to their schedule, I mean, they've won a lot of critical tiebreakers. I mean, they beat the Chargers. They have a really, really good, really good conference record, I believe. They're 4-1 in the conference, which is an excellent record. That's better than any, with the exception of the Raiders, that's better than any wild card team. That's even better than a couple of division winning teams right now. I mean, in terms of their conference record. And if you look down to their schedule, they have a third place schedule, and that could really be helpful. I mean, you got the Browns, who might not have Nick Chubb. You have Atlanta, who struggled. You have the Jaguars, who have struggled. I wouldn't even say the Bills are the dominant force they were last year. Now, they could pick up steam, but right now they're not that. And that Dolphins rematch, which is usually the house of horrors for Goatman and Belichick in the past, that could be a game the Patriots end up winning to stay in the thick of things, because the Dolphins might be out of contention by I'm sure before then, but they'll be way out of contention by then. But looking at the rest of these teams, it goes back to my last video. I mean, we're going to have an excellent wild card race. It's going to be so much fun. So the NFC, the Rams, I've said either the Cardinals or Rams, whichever one of them doesn't win the division, will be the 5 seed. And I made that same prediction last year about the Saints and Tampa, and I was actually correct. And I had Tampa as the 5 seed last year, and they ended up being the 5 seed. Now, the Rams, I think, can still contend for the division, obviously, but the Cardinals just look light years ahead of the Rams. They're winning with backup quarterbacks and without their top wide receiver. Now, that's saying something, because DeAndre Hopkins is a big part of Arizona's offense, if not the second biggest. But they're winning without him, and even without Kyler Murray, and they won against a 49ers team on the road that really needed the win to stay in contention. They got the brooms out and got the sweep. That's huge. The Rams, on the other hand, they haven't played the 49ers or Seattle yet. Oh, no, they played Seattle. I'm sorry. They haven't played the 49ers yet, and they do have a rematch with the Cardinals and Seattle coming up. But it's the Cardinals that haven't played Seattle yet, I don't think. Yeah, okay, there we go. I mixed them up. But the Rams are going to be a playoff team. We know this. And the Rams, you could argue, still could be a pick to win it all in the NFC. I'm probably going to make those picks around week 12, week 13. It's very difficult to make right now. The Saints at 5-3. This has been a surprise, not necessarily because the Saints are playing well, but because they're afloat ahead of teams like Minnesota, teams like Seattle, which I figured their offense would keep it in it for a bit, but with Russell Wilson out, not really. But with Jameis Winston gone, it's going to be a challenge, because they do still have a rematch against Tampa, Tennessee, Buffalo, Dallas. They have a couple of tough games coming up. And a few of these, more specifically, teams like Atlanta, teams like, well, Carolina, they'll probably be able to beat the second time around, but that's going to be a really tricky, sneaky type of schedule. I think the Saints will still do pretty well, but it'll be a sneaky type of schedule. Atlanta being the 7 seed, that's not going to last. All due respect, that's not going to last. I think Minnesota's going to bounce back, and I hate to emphasize Minnesota, but if you look at their schedule, they almost beat Arizona. You could argue, almost beat Dallas. They came very close to winning that game. And, I mean, if you look at the score, I mean, that was a really, really close game. And they even came close to winning last week against the Ravens. I mean, Minnesota is a lot better than their record says. And I do think they're going to somehow find a way to crawl back into the wild card race. And going back to the AFC, because in my opinion, the AFC is more interesting. A lot of these teams, with the exception of maybe Indianapolis, they're all still in the division hunt. I mean, especially New England. I mean, you haven't forgotten about New England, have you? I mean, they could still make it interesting against Buffalo. They're a half game behind. And yeah, okay, their division record isn't exactly great. It's 2-1. It's not the worst thing in the world. But I still think that the Buffalo Bills are struggling, and the Patriots are going to make it really interesting. But that's all I've got for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys in the next one.